inclined to be sympathetic, sent in his messengers after Lilith, telling her to shape up and return to Adam or face dire punishment. She, however, preferring anything to living with Adam, decided to stay where she was. And so God, after more careful consideration this time, caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and out of one of his ribs created for him a second companion, Eve. For a time, Eve and Adam had a good thing going. Adam was happy now, and Eve, though she occasionally sensed capacities within herself that remained undeveloped, was basically satisfied with the role of Adam's wife and helper. The one thing that really disturbed her was the excluding closeness of the relationship between Adam and God. Adam and God just seemed to have more in common, both being men, and Adam came to identify with God more and more. After a while, that made God a bit uncomfortable too, and he started going over in his mind whether he may not have made a mistake letting Adam talk him into banishing Lilith and creating Eve, seeing the power that gave Adam. Meanwhile, Lilith, all alone, attempted from time to time to rejoin the human community in the garden. After her first fruitless attempts to breach its walls, Adam worked hard to build them stronger, even getting Eve to help him. He told her fearsome stories of the demon Lilith, who threatens women in childbirth and steals children from their cradles in the middle of the night. The second time Lilith came, she stormed the garden's main gate, and a great battle ensued between her and Adam, in which she was finally defeated. This time, however, before Lilith got away, Eve got a glimpse of her and saw she was a woman like herself. After this encounter, seeds of curiosity and doubt began to grow in Eve's mind. Was Lilith indeed just another woman? Adam had said she was a demon. Another woman! The very idea attracted Eve. She had never seen another creature like herself before. And how beautiful and strong Lilith looked. How bravely she had fought. Slowly, Eve began to think about the limits of her own life within the garden. One day, after many months of strange and disturbing thoughts, Eve, wandering around the edge of the garden, noticed a young apple tree she and Adam had planted, and saw that one of its branches stretched over the garden wall. Spontaneously, she tried to climb it, and struggling to the top, swung herself over the wall. She did not wander long on the other side before she met the one she had come to find, for Lilith was waiting. At first sight of her, Eve remembered the tales of Adam and was frightened, but Lilith understood and greeted her kindly. "Who are you?" they asked each other. "What is your story?" And they sat and spoke together of the past and then of the future. They talked for many hours, not once but many times. They taught each other many things and told each other stories and laughed together and cried over and over till the bond of sisterhood grew between them. Meanwhile, back in the garden, Adam was puzzled by Eve's comings and goings, and disturbed by what he sensed to be her new attitude towards him. He talked to God about it, and God, having his own problems with Adam and a somewhat broader perspective, was able to help out a little, but he was confused too. Something had failed to go according to plan. As in the days of Abraham, he needed counsel from his children. "I am who I am," thought God, "but I must become who I will become." And God and Adam were expectant and afraid of the day Eve and Lilith returned to the garden, bursting with possibilities, ready to rebuild it together. We wrestle with God language. God is He. God is King. God is all-powerful. God is Creator and Father. Avinu Malkeinu. How do we relate to a God like that if we will never be an Avinu? If we would never be a Father, an Abba? How do we relate to God if God is always He? So the feminist movement brought these questions up, and they struggled, and they came up with lots of different answers. Many of you have experienced them in your own liturgies. Sometimes we use feminine words for God, some that were traditional, some that are new. We have the Shekhinah, the feminine aspect of God, that we've always had. try to bring it back stronger. We try to throw in some she's. If you're in the Reform movement and you look at the gates of repentance, in addition to having our Armenian volcano, in the very, very back of the book, known by few people probably, is a feminine version of that. Volcano became the queen, our mother. And they go through it a different way. Then there was the idea of, no, we shouldn't go feminine and masculine, we should go neutral. Lots of people, however, had problems with God being it. And how can we relate to something if it's ruler or parent? Because most of us only have a mother or two mothers, or a father or two fathers, but we don't have a generic parent. So there became debates back and forth. And they worked on it. Marcia Falk, at the request of Arthur Raskow, created new liturgy. She, however, played with the Hebrew. Most people were afraid to go there, because that was traditional and don't touch the Hebrew. It's one thing to change the English, it's another thing to change the Hebrew. She talked about it in a program called Blessing for This Day, at the Illuminating the Unwritten Scrolls, Women's Spirituality and Jewish Tradition. Some say the whole area of creating your own prayers came from that event when she talked about it. We added the Imahot, many of us, into the Avot, into our service. When I was graduating HUC, that was one of the big things starting to happen in '94. I started a congregation in Sacramento in '94, and that fall they had me, one of the Camarade invited me to speak tonight about this subject. And because of it, that congregation started putting in that Camarade to make sure that every single door of the congregation had an Imahot in there. For many of us now, that's pretty natural. But it was a big debate for a ritual committee for a while. New rituals. Vanessa Oates created a list of characteristics of new rituals of Jewish women. We marked the unmarked. A girl becoming 12 or 13. A female daughter being born. We also did different things. The first menses, a kid going off to college, getting a driver's license. We explored rituals in all new ways. They believed it was helping fostering community and allowing for improvisation and personalization. If you look at Rosh Kodesh materials and you have books on it, it gives you options of A, B, C, D, E, and F, and G, and here are some extras as well. Same with the new baby books, naming ceremony books. It's taking place often in a less regulated space. These were done in homes, out at the ocean, in the middle of the woods. It was only until after they got to become accepted that things like Rosh Kodesh became into the synagogue or into a JCC. It was a time to explore oneself and make things easy and spontaneous and flexible. For instance, the Brit Milad takes place on the 8th day. You have no choice. My daughter, when she was born, we actually still did it on the 8th day. It wasn't the smartest thing I ever said. A lot of families choose, however, to do the naming of the daughter or welcoming them into the covenant of the daughter 30 days out or later so that the mother can recuperate and family actually can have some time to get in. Because that's where our society is today, not everyone lives in one place. The bat mitzvah. 1922, Mordecai Kaplan brought his daughter in quietly, had her do some things, and that was the first bat mitzvah. By 1948, the bat mitzvah was held by 1/3 of the conservative synagogues. It had